In this edition of Generations, we talk with Caleb Rosemay from Assured Quality Homecare about his organisation and why not all home care services are the same. What happens when you retire, when many people get themselves a second career? We talk with Bob Hallam about his. And Judy Jenks from seniorcenterct.org talks about SCORE, the free service that helps with advice for those starting a new business. Hello, I'm Brian Scott-Smith and welcome to Generations, a new podcast for people of your generation. At some point in our lives, the decision to either stay in our homes or move to a care facility will have to be made. But how do you decide what's right for you and your family? And do you really want to leave the place you've called home for so many years and start up somewhere else? There are many options out there, and I recently spoke to Caleb Rosemay of Assured Quality Homecare based in Norwich, Connecticut, about his organisation and what it offers.
We're a home care agency, and what we do is we hire and send caregivers into the homes of the elderly. And these are individuals where they either live alone and their children have been providing care for them, and the care needs of their parent is exceeding the capacity of that child to help out mom or dad, or it's somebody who lives with their spouse and their care needs have exceeded the capability of their spouse. So maybe the person needs help with showering or getting out of bed and getting dressed, and the spouse isn't able to do all those things. Or else there's some skills required that the spouse is unable to do.
So what's special, obviously, about Assured Quality Home Care? Because obviously, respectfully, there's a lot of other organisations out there, but I'm guessing, they're not all the same.
That's a great question. What makes it special is our care, is the fact that case management is a part of our agency. Most of the time when it comes to home care, you're going to call a company. You may get somebody, if you're lucky, to come out and visit you and ask you a couple questions and get you to sign a contract to start care, and then somebody just shows up on your front door. With our service, it's more boutique. We have 2 nurses on staff, and those nurses oversee the caregivers. They're also the same nurses that will come and do an assessment. And when they do an assessment, it's a very in-depth assessment. Because they are nurses by practice, they're looking out for things that need to happen to help, as much as possible, improve the quality of care that somebody's receiving at home. And once again, those nurses continue to oversee the care. Majority of time, when you are in home care, you're going to have person who's doing the assessment, they don't have any sort of formal training. And I think the worst part is the caregivers that they send to your house, they have no formal training either. If your mom was in a hospital or a skilled nursing home and they had to go home in that setting, they have CNAs or trained people to provide care for them. Now imagine they come home and the person taking care of your loved one has no training at all. How are they going to really be able to help? So we have nurses to oversee the staff who provide the care, and the staff that's providing the care, they have to go through a 21 skill certification process.
There was one thing that really struck me when I had a look at the website when I was doing the research for this interview, and it really hit me, and I'd never seen it before on any other website. And it said a free 104-point safety evaluation, which sounds incredible. Tell me a little bit about it.
Oh, that's a fantastic question. So when somebody has an incident and they end up in a skilled nursing facility or the hospital, or let's just say mom or dad or your spouse is falling, has fallen multiple times, there's an indication that something in the home needs to change. And so there's no true home care without some sort of a home safety evaluation and modification that's done in the home to maximize the quality of care that a person receives. And so what our home safety assessment does is a nurse that performs a home safety assessment and the initial caregiver who comes into the home also goes through and performs a home safety assessment just to identify any potential risks, such as rugs, or let's say you're transitioning home from a skilled nursing facility or a hospital, you have a low toilet seat. You should have somebody to go through your home and identify, you need to have a raised toilet seat. And so by us doing that, we're able to collaborate with anybody on the care team. It could be the doctor, it could be the home health agency, it could be the child or the spouse to say, hey, we need to get a raised toilet seat in here. This will help this person use the restroom easier without having to struggle to get up, or this will reduce the chance that this person will fall, uh, just to address all of the things that are safety concerns.
I mean, that sounds like a minor thing. It's something which I think so many of us would overlook. I mean, we use the bathroom, but probably don't think about the facilities in there. So actually having somebody who comes in and objectively looks at this and says exactly what you've just said, it could be potentially a life-saving situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that we've helped transition over 200 people home and keep them safe. And out of those 200 people, we've only had three situations where they ended up back at the hospital within 30 days. So for us, that tells us that what we're doing is working. And we also have these families get surveyed by a third party verification company just to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our clients. And when you look at like the satisfaction of our customers, over 85% of our customers are satisfied with the service that we provide.
I think it's very important, when people have, effectively strangers come into their home to look after their family members, that, they can say there is this independence to like checking. But also, let's talk about the fact that, you've got, I believe, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau as well. I mean, that obviously, means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the Better Business Bureau, if someone's unhappy, they complain to the Business Bureau, and the Better Business Bureau provides visibility to customer complaints. And us as the business, if we are given an opportunity to address a customer complaint, and even then you would still see that so-and-so complained about this and we addressed it. Thankfully, we don't have that issue. There are none there. We have an additional 42 plus reviews on caring.com, which, out of that is a 4.5 out of 5 star. And then with Google, we're 4.5 out of 5 star reviews there also.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is you also supply, a huge range of services, but I just wanted to pick up on two in particular: end of life care and also respite and sitter care. Talk to us about obviously the end of life care aspect.
I think that the end of life care, it's tough for the families to go through. For us, it's an honor to assist a family in those situations. So, end of life care is for people who are at the end of their life. These individuals are typically on hospice care and they're at home and they're bed bound. They have a lot more complicated needs, which in our case, the majority of time we're dealing with somebody with 5 or more chronic conditions. When you have an end of life client, this is like 2 to 3, 4 times more chronic conditions are involved just because of the complexity of that. So both of our nurses on staff have that training. So they've worked for a hospice company and they provided hospice care for multiple years. And so what that has allowed us to do is we understand what a hospice agency is looking for when a home care agency is in the picture. And we also understand from the family side what they're looking for, because these nurses have been on the hospice side where the family is expressing the needs that the additional needs that the hospice provider isn't able to provide. And we've been on the home care side too. Now that in being on the home care side, it allows these nurses to know this hospice agency is going to need these things and this family is going to need these things also. And so we train our team, our caregivers, and we equip our caregivers so that they can understand and help make that process for the family as easy as possible. And I think like probably the best example would be we had a client who was passing away. The entire family is there with him and they're attending to him, the person. They're not attending to his physical needs because that's what we were there for. We were able to make sure that this person stayed comfortable in his home, in his bed. We were able to collaborate and communicate with the hospice agency so that they were aware of whatever was happening. But I think what was most important is the family and the fact that they were able to spend quality time with the individual instead of focusing on his actual physical needs during his last few hours.
The other one I wanted to pick up on with you, of course, was respite and sitter care,
Yes.
which you provide. I mean, people, of course, and we're talking about at the moment, you supplying a service to individuals in their home, but we also mustn't forget that the caregivers, the primary caregivers and loved ones who may also be part of this process often need some time away themselves. And of course, that's something that, your organization recognizes and can help with.
Yeah, absolutely. What happens is if you're the primary caregiver, you have to take a break. Otherwise, you will burn out. As the care needs for your loved one increases, the more and more limited you are in regards to your ability to do anything. And so having a respite care, it could be once a week or it could be 3 times a week. It helps make things easier. And so we have a couple that we do that for. And the wife goes swimming on the days that we provide respite care. She goes out and hangs out with her friends on the day that we provide respite care. And those things help her to recharge to come back to provide care for her husband. And so, yeah, the respite care is certainly important for the people who don't need someone there all the time. And they're able to handle all the needs of their loved one, but they do need to take a break.
Thank you for taking time, I'm sure, out of an incredibly busy day to share with us the information about assured quality home care. And thanks for joining us on the Generations podcast.
Thank you, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
And if you want to find out more about Assured Quality Home Care and their services, visit their website at asqhomecare.com. There comes a point when retirement from our jobs either becomes an option or because the law says so. But what happens if you're not ready to leave the world of work? Many of those that retire decide that's exactly the case and look for a second career. In this next interview, I speak with my longtime friend Bob Hallam from San Jose in California, who worked for years in the tech industry and after he retired decided there was more he wanted to do. Bob, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
It's always fun.
So tell us a little bit about your background story. You are a baby boomer. You've had an incredible career. Just give us a quick synopsis of that.
Actually, I am not a baby boomer. I was born 6 months too early. Apparently, you have to have been born in 45 to be a baby boomer, and I was born in the middle of 44. So I'm an almost baby boomer. Grew up in Southern California primarily, went to UCLA, graduated from UCLA, got a job on campus at UCLA as a babysitter for computers, and eventually turned that into what became a career.
Let's pick up on your career with IBM just a little bit more. I don't want to get into the weeds too much about it, but you had an incredible career with them, as you say, almost 43, or it was 43 years. But, it took you all over the world. You were, constantly jetting back and forth. I mean, just tell us a little bit about that, because that in itself must be a very tiring, but also I'm guessing a very rewarding career because you stuck at it for so long.
I started off in federal systems, and at the time it was a really exciting job because I was at Jet Propulsion Laboratory as we were preparing the unmanned robots that were getting the moon ready for the human landings. Got to be involved with that. In 1970, as the Vietnam War was dying down and federal systems contracts were dying down, I moved from Los Angeles to San Jose, where I still am. Came up here originally into what was called the Advanced Systems Division of IBM, where we were developing products that basically nobody thought had a place to be. Two of the products that I worked on, actually, that are sort of ubiquitous today. One was the barcode that's on packages. And I worked with the people who developed that and did the software for the initial prototypes, and also worked with the people who put magnetic stripes on credit cards. Evolved from that and got involved with automated teller machines. And people don't realize that IBM actually was the very first automated teller machine manufacturer, working with Lloyds Bank in the UK. Those were the first machines in the world to just sit there and give out money. And that got me involved in traveling around the world. And I started then speaking at conferences. I did customer presentations on all 6 of the world's inhabited continents.
So it comes to a point where IBM forces a situation on you about retirement. Just tell us a little bit about that, because it's very relevant to the story that you're telling us today.
IBM was going through fairly severe downsizing, and I was, quite frankly, ready to retire. And so I went to my boss, and there was no pressure or any downsizing at the moment. And I basically said, next time there is a layoff in the works, think about me, because I'd just as soon retire. Back in my mind, of course, was the idea that if I'm going to leave anyway, I might as leave with a severance package, which at that point in time I knew to be a year's extended medical coverage, and a check for 6 months' salary, which was not all bad. It came about, and part of the package, which I had not anticipated, was there was also a $2,500 allowance for, they called it career retraining. And I'm not sure what they thought you would retrain for a career for at age 64 or 65. I had just at that point in time taken up scuba diving. And I said, that'd be fun to be a scuba diving, originally a dive master. And so I went to IBM and I said, can I use those monies to become a dive master or scuba instructor? And they said, well, certainly that's a career that somebody can do at your age. And so by the time I was done, I was a dive master, I was an assistant instructor, and I was also a CPR first aid instructor.
So a lot of people would have decided, okay, I've got to 64, 65. Yeah, I still got a lot of life left to live, but I'm going to take a little bit of time and, maybe think about things. Clearly, that isn't you. So, what was the passion behind the diving? Because I know that you've got a lot of passions, but what specifically took you in the diving direction?
This one was fairly new at. I'd only been diving for 2 or 3 years. It was something I guess that I'd always wanted to do my whole life, but I just never actually thought of doing it. And we'd been going to Hawaii on a fairly regular basis. And when we went there, we'd go for a week. And my wife, Maxine, would say, well, we're here for a week. You're not going to spend 4 days taking scuba lessons, what it takes to get certified. And then one year we went for 2 weeks. She said, okay, now we're here for 2 weeks, go ahead. And that was when it got started. So I was, 63 or something when I first, 62, 63, when I first learned to scuba. I really enjoyed it. I had not done a lot of scuba diving here in California, where the water is 20 or 25 degrees Fahrenheit colder than Hawaii. And so that was an experience, but I enjoyed it. And part of my IBM career had been education, teaching along the way. I taught at a community college for a few years. And so I thought, scuba instruction might be fun. And as it turns out, it has been a ball. I really enjoy it.
So it's 10 years now that you have been, a scuba instructor. Do you consider this like a second career?
It's certainly in the sense that it takes up a lot of my time, not in the sense that I make any money doing it. Between the travel that involved just getting to and from the dive sites, maintaining and refreshing my personal equipment, things like that, I barely financially break even. I make a few hundred or maybe $1,000 a year profit. But on the other hand, it does keep me in brand new dive equipment quite regular, on a regular basis, which is also fun.
You're 75 this year, still very young. But what do people say to you generally when they find out that, hey, look at this guy, he's my instructor, and he's 75 years old?
I don't advertise the point of my age. Brian, because you know me for a long time, but the people on your listening won't know, is that I have a great big full white beard. And so around the shop, when somebody says, well, where's Bob? They'll normally say, well, just go look for Santa Claus. And that's really as close as I ever get to talking about age. I don't know that anybody there realizes that I'm 75.
When you look at society today, just generally, do you feel that, people of your generation are doing more of this, making more of their lives? And is it something also that you even considered, 10, 15 years ago? Has it surprised you?
I guess I had no idea what I would, I didn't have other than a financial plan, which said, make sure I have enough money to live comfortably. I don't think I had a task plan or a job plan or anything else for what to do after retirement. So this one kind of happened. It keeps me incredibly busy. I'm usually in the ocean with a class at least once or twice a month. I'm in the pool almost every week with a class or a student. One of the things that has happened that's kind of fun is, maybe it's because I spend so much time with my grandkids or something, but there's a program in scuba diving training where you can begin to learn scuba as young as 8 years old. And most of the instructors at the shop where I hang out don't have the patience to deal with 8 and 9-year-olds. And so whenever a parent comes in and says, I've got an 8 or 9-year-old, I'm the one who gets the call. And I find them delightful. They are so much fun. I mean, yeah, the adults are there and you deal with the normal adult problems that some people learn differently than others. But an 8 or 9-year-old who is enthused and wanting to learn to dive is just an excitement. It's really wonderful.
Looking back at your career, and again, just quickly touching on the IBM aspect, lot of technology, complex in so many different areas. And then, of course, you decided to take on diving, which in itself has its own very serious complexities, the lot of training and the knowledge that goes with it. I know you said that you're a serial hobbyist, but I mean, is the technical stuff something that really drives you as well, other than, just the pure excitement of in the ocean?
I've got to be a little separate things here, because there's a whole field called technical diving. And and I will call them politely idiots who like to go to 200 and 300 feet. What I'm doing is recreational diving, which has basically a limit of 130 feet, which people who don't understand diving think that's incredibly deep. Funny thing is it doesn't feel any different than 10 feet. But I do love the technology. Jacques Cousteau did us all a wonderful thing by inventing the scuba regulator. But the technology in there is so incredibly simple. It's just a beautiful mechanical thing, because it does such a complex task in such a very simple way. And now that we have added the technology of underwater dive computers that are constantly calculating your depth and time and your nitrogen uptake and your remaining dive time without worrying about the bends and all of those things. And of course, again, like I said, being a technology fan, I always have to have the latest and greatest. And so that in itself is exciting. The raw physiology and physics of diving is also very interesting and exciting. The way not only the hardware, but the human body responds to we live at 1 atmosphere of pressure on the surface, and suddenly you're now breathing air that's at 2, 3, 4, 5 atmospheres of pressure. And the pressure of the ocean on you and how that affects your breathing and everything else that's part of you. It's just, I find that very interesting, and continue, studying and reading on that subject.
So what else do you think is in store for you? Like we said, a continued go-getter. You're clearly not in any hurry to actually retire at all. So what else is in the works for you?
Well, the biggest problem we have right now is fitting in my scuba classes around the travel. Maxine and I love to travel. This year alone, in January, we did a cruise to Cuba. February, we went to Hawaii for 2 weeks. End of April, we're doing another cruise to Mexico. In May, we're spending a week in Manhattan. In June, we're taking our grandson to Rome. Rest of the summer's open, but in December, we're going on another cruise to Indonesia. So, we're not home very much. And when we're home, we squeeze in all of our scuba diving and things like that.
To anybody else out there listening to, your story, what you have done, and, maybe they're getting to that point themselves where they're either considering retirement or retirement is upon them, what would you say to them?
Either decide, or as I did, just stumble onto something that really is going to keep you going. Don't fall into I'm going to sit in my easy chair and under the tree and read books all day, even though that can be a hobby of its own, but something to keep you moving and something to keep you going and something to look forward to next month, next year.
Bob Hallam, ever so many thanks for joining us on Generations.
It's been wonderful, and appreciate you for all the years.
And joining us as usual is Judy Jenks from seniorcenterct.org. Judy, lovely to see you this edition.
Glad to be here with you.
So we're talking about an organisation that assists with small businesses, is that correct?
Yes, we are. And I just sort of wanted to tell my story and how I got connected with SCORE. And so it was after many years of working as a senior center director, I chose to start my business as a way to help the community learn about senior centers and the services and resources available to seniors and their families. And boy, have I learned a lot since I started seniorcenterct.org. This idea for seniorcenterct.org developed from area senior center directors exploring how they would change and evolve to accommodate the soon-to-arrive baby boomers. We talked with Maria Miranda of Miranda Creative, and the foundation for a collaborative 9-town senior center website was born. From that point to now, the learning curve has been huge. I'm proud to say that seniorcenterct.org and I continue to grow every day. Maria continues to be my mentor, along with Deborah Jane, my financial wizard, and many others have become my sounding boards. And then I was fortunate enough for Arlene to become my mentor through SCORE. A retired marketing and strategic planning expert, Arlene, readily pitches in and is guiding me with marketing and branding of seniorcenterct.org. We always need to remember we don't travel our journey alone. And in order to meet Arlene, I needed to discover SCORE. SCORE is a wonderful free resource that has the nation's largest network of volunteer business mentors. There are over 10,000 expert volunteers in 300 chapters. 2018, SCORE mentors helped start 32,387 businesses and created 135,687 jobs. SCORE is a resource partner for the U.S. Small Business Administration and is there to help you achieve your dream as a small business owner. They are there every step of the way to teach and guide you as you grow. When you go to the SCORE website, you can choose Find a Mentor, take a workshop, or browse the library. You can find the SCORE location nearest you. You can become a volunteer. You can see the impact SCORE makes. Explore this website. View a webinar. Read an article. Learn how to use your stats and data to drive growth. Take a workshop. And there are even podcasts you can listen to as you drive to your next appointment. Everything SCORE does truly is free. SCORE is always there for you to access. Let them help you grow personally and professionally as your business evolves and thrives. As SCORE says, the next success could be yours.
So, Judy, before we start talking about SCORE a little bit more, when I listen to these that you do each edition, it strikes me very similar to the little segments they do on Sunday morning on CBS.
Thank you.
I think you've got yourself another job there.
As though I need another job.
Just don't forget us on the podcast.
I will never forget
rich and
you.
famous.
And the thing is, when I come to write these, I'm not even sure sometimes how you and I come up with the topics that I'm going to write about. And I think about them for a while, and I have these little pieces of things floating around, and then it's like, I got to sit down and write this. And they literally don't take any time to write. This one was a little bit harder, and I don't know why. But, I just need all the pieces, and I start arranging them, and it's like, well, there it is. But SCORE is really large and multifaceted, and sometimes because you're starting, you don't know what you want. So it's a little hard to figure out. And once I got pointed in the direction that what I needed help in, then it was very easy to maneuver. You start building relationships, and it's just easy to start talking to them, and then they direct you. So again, reach out to SCORE because they are there. It's amazingly that it's free, and they're there just to help.
And I think that's the important thing, isn't it? I mean, we live in a time now where I think more people are going to be sort of like creating small businesses. Mm-hmm. But to have that free advice, I think, is essential because, when you are starting a small business, budgets are tight.
You have no money. You're in debt when you're starting a business. Very few people are fortunate enough to have whatever to be able to not go into debt to start a business. And we all think we need consultants, we need mentors, we need this, we need that. Turn to SCORE. It's free. So you don't need to get more debt. They are experts.
And of course, as you were saying, with the people that have helped you, years of experience as well, which is absolutely essential because they can tell you where maybe they fell over or, where they really succeeded or what worked for them.
Right. And they also are very good at telling you what your successes are because you don't even know. You're out there and you're trying to do your best and you're doing all of that, but you don't know if you're doing it really well. So then when you're telling your mentor, I'm doing this and that, and they're like, wow, it's amazing that you've been able to achieve that. That's great too.
Senior Centre CT goes from strength to strength. The podcast, along with that, is testament to the success, obviously, of your work. So thank you, as always, for these great insights, and we'll catch you next episode.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's all from this edition of Generations. Don't forget to visit seniorcenterct.org to find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. And if you want to send us a topic to talk about or want to be our guest on the podcast, drop us a line by visiting the seniorcenterct.org website. Go to the bottom of the homepage and click the How to Advertise with Us link to get in touch. From myself, Brian Scott Smith, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.